The war room of the Catherine Empire stretched across half a kilometer of polished obsidian floor. Holographic displays floated in the air like captured stars, each one showing a different conquered world. 47 systems, 47 victories. The Empire had never known defeat, and today would mark the beginning of their 48th triumph. Fleet Commander Zalthor stood before the Supreme Council, with his forearms crossed in a gesture of absolute confidence. His scales gleamed under the artificial lights, each one bearing the marks of battles won and enemies crushed. Behind him, the largest holographic display showed a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. Earth. The survey is complete. Supreme Council, Zalthor announced, his voice carrying the weight of certain victory. The humans of Earth are barely beyond their own atmosphere. They have no shields. Their weapons are primitive. They still use kinetic projectiles and chemical propulsion. Their largest warship would not survive a single shot from our smallest frigate. Council member Brikath leaned forward, her 6 eyes studying the data streams. They have achieved spaceflight. They have split the atom. Are we certain they pose no threat? Zalthor's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his kind. Supreme One, they have 12 space stations and perhaps 200 satellites. We have conquered species with 1,000 times their capability. The humans argue among themselves, divided into nearly 200 nations. They cannot even unite their own world. This will not be a war. It will be a harvest. The hologram shifted, showing Earth's cities glowing in the darkness. Their power grids spread across continents like veins of light. The planet was rich beyond measure. Rare metals, diverse biology, water in abundance, and 8 billion humans who would serve the Empire or be eliminated. Supreme Leader Krathanak rose from his throne, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. He had ruled the Empire for 300 cycles, and in all that time he had never questioned a military assessment. How many ships do you require, Commander? For a world this primitive, 50 would be excessive, Supreme Leader. Zalthor's confidence filled the room like radiation, but we should make a statement. Let the galaxy see what happens to those who possess resources the Empire desires. I request 300 warships. A murmur rippled through the council. 300 ships. It was the largest fleet ever assembled against a Tier 3 civilization. Species far more advanced had fallen to forces a tenth that size. Granted, Krathanak declared. Make it quick. Make it absolute. And Commander, bring me some of these humans alive. I wish to see the species that built such pretty cities before they are put to work in our mines. Zalthor bowed, his heart swelling with pride. This would be the crowning achievement of his career. In a single cycle, perhaps less, Earth would belong to the Empire. His name would be remembered forever as the commander who brought humanity to heel. The fleet assembled in the darkness beyond the Catherine homeworld. 300 vessels ranging from massive dreadnoughts 5 kilometers long to nimble destroyers that could outrun light itself. Each ship bristled with energy weapons capable of glassing a planet. Each crew was trained in the art of subjugation, perfected over centuries of conquest. Zalthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and watched his fleet form up in perfect military precision. Behind him, his tactical officer reviewed the invasion plan one final time. The human military is fragmented, the officer reported. They have multiple forces that do not coordinate well. Their largest powers possess nuclear weapons, but these are crude devices that would harm their own planet. Intelligence suggests they will surrender once they see our superiority. And if they don't, asked the ship's second officer, then we demonstrate on one of their cities. The ruins of Paris or New York or Beijing will convince the others. Zalthor's tone was matter-of-fact. He had done this before. The pattern was always the same. Show overwhelming force. Destroy one population center. Accept surrender. Begin exploitation. The fleet entered jump space, tearing a hole in reality itself. The journey to Earth would take 6 weeks. Zalthor spent that time reviewing human culture such as it was. He found them peculiar. They created art and music even in their most impoverished regions. They told stories about heroes who stood against impossible odds. They seemed obsessed with the concept of freedom, whatever that meant to a species that had never known true order. One thing did concern him, though he mentioned it to no one. Humans fought among themselves constantly. Their history was soaked in blood. Wars that killed millions, weapons designed for the sole purpose of killing other humans. They had even developed doctrines for something they called total war, where every resource and every citizen became part of the war machine. But that was against each other, Zalthor reminded himself. Against an external threat, against an enemy from the stars, they would crumble. They always did. Fear was universal. The fleet emerged from jump space at the edge of the Sol system, their arrival lighting up every sensor on every human satellite within range. Zalthor allowed himself a moment of satisfaction as he watched the primitive detection systems light up with alarm. Open all frequencies, he commanded. Broadcast in their dominant languages. The message was simple and had been used 47 times before. People of Earth, you have been judged worthy of service to the Catherine Empire. Surrender your weapons and your governments. Comply and your transition will be painless. Resist and we will demonstrate the futility of defiance. You have one planetary rotation to respond. The communications officer looked puzzled. Commander, we are receiving thousands of transmissions. The humans are broadcasting on every frequency. What do they say? Most are panic, Commander. But there is one transmission that keeps repeating from multiple sources. It appears to be their official response. Play it. The voice that came through the speakers was human, male, speaking in their language called English. The translation software rendered it instantly. To the Catherine Empire, we have received your message. We decline. Come and try. Silence fell across the bridge. Officers looked at each other in confusion. In 47 conquests, no species had responded with such simple defiance. There were usually negotiations, pleas for mercy, offers of partial surrender. Zalthor felt a strange sensation ripple through his body. Not fear, he did not know fear, but something close to it. A whisper of doubt. They don't understand, he said firmly. Prepare a demonstration. Target their largest city, Beijing. Charge weapons for a surgical strike on their government district. That will clarify matters. The weapons officer hesitated. Commander, our sensors are detecting unusual activity. The humans are launching thousands of objects into orbit. Small craft, satellites, even what appears to be modified cargo vessels. Irrelevant. They're panicking. Execute the strike. The fleet moved into Earth's orbital space like a predator circling wounded prey. Zalthor watched the blue planet grow larger on his screens and allowed himself to imagine the victory celebrations. 300 ships against a species that couldn't even generate energy shields. This would be over before the cycle ended. The weapons officer called out firing solutions. Energy built in the Eternal Dominion's main cannon. Enough power to vaporize 10 city blocks in an instant. The shot would kill millions and break humanity's will to resist. Fire, Zalthor commanded. The cannon discharged, a beam of pure energy crossing the distance to Earth in a fraction of a second. It struck the atmosphere and began to burn through toward Beijing. And then something impossible happened. The beam scattered, diffused. A network of satellites had positioned themselves in its path, each one detonating in a carefully timed sequence that dispersed the energy across the upper atmosphere. The sky over Beijing lit up like a second sun for 3 seconds, but when the light faded, the city remained intact. What? Zalthor began. Multiple launches from the surface. The tactical officer shouted. Thousands of missiles. Chemical propulsion, but moving fast. Impact in 30 seconds. Shields will hold. They're primitive weapons. But the missiles weren't aimed at his ships. They were aimed at each other. As Zalthor watched in growing horror, the missiles detonated in a carefully orchestrated pattern across orbital space. Nuclear weapons. Dozens of them. The electromagnetic pulse from the blasts washed across his fleet like a wave. Shields flickered. Electronics screamed. 3 destroyers lost power completely, their systems fried by the intensity of the pulse. And in that moment of confusion, as his fleet struggled to compensate, the humans struck. They came from everywhere at once. Small craft that had been disguised as debris. Modified shuttles packed with explosives. Even humans in primitive spacesuits, hundreds of them, launched from railguns on the surface. They flew toward the fleet like bullets and many died in the void, but those who reached the ships clamped onto hulls and began cutting their way inside. Boarders! Someone screamed. They're boarding the ships! Zalthor couldn't process it. Boarding actions were a relic of ancient warfare. No species had attempted such a tactic in millennia. It was suicide. The humans would die by the thousands. But they kept coming. Alarms blared across the fleet. Ship after ship reported breaches. Human soldiers were inside their vessels, fighting in corridors, dying in droves, but always pushing forward. Zalthor listened to the reports in stunned disbelief. Destroyer Krath's Fist reports 50% casualties. Humans are using weapons they shouldn't have. They're jamming our communications. They're everywhere. A new sound filled the command channel. Singing. The humans were singing as they died. War songs. Battle hymns. Songs about death and glory and never surrendering. All ships pull back to defensive formation, Zalthor ordered, his voice tight. Execute emergency jump protocols. We regroup and the transmission cut off as the lights on his bridge flickered. An explosion echoed through the hull. His own ship. They were on his own ship. The last thing Zalthor recorded in his personal log, before the bridge doors exploded inward and human soldiers in armor marked with a flag of stars and stripes poured through, was a single sentence. They fight like gods of war. May mercy find us, for we have found none here. The battle raged for 3 days. Of the 300 ships that entered Earth's space, none returned to Catherine territory. Some were destroyed. Some were captured. Some simply vanished, their crews dead, their systems corrupted by human cyber weapons that turned their own technology against them. And in the void of space, among the debris of the greatest fleet the Empire had ever assembled, human ships began salvaging the wreckage, learning, adapting, preparing. Earth had sent a message to the galaxy. It was written in the burning hulls of 300 warships and the silence of an empire that had finally met its match. The message was simple. We are humanity, and we do not surrender. 3 months had passed since the fleet had entered the Sol system. 3 months of absolute silence. The Catherine Empire's military command center operated around the clock, monitoring every frequency, every quantum channel, every possible method of communication. Nothing came back. No victory reports. No requests for reinforcements. No distress signals. 300 ships and their crews had simply vanished into the void as if they had never existed. Admiral Kreshvin paced the observation deck of the orbital command station, his 3 hearts beating in a regular rhythm of anxiety. He had served the Empire for 200 cycles. He had overseen dozens of conquests. Never, not once, had an entire fleet gone silent. Check the communication arrays again, he ordered for the 100th time. The communications officer, a young Catherine named Telshar, shook her head. All systems are functional, Admiral. The problem is not on our end. There is simply nothing to receive. A fleet does not disappear. Even in defeat, there are survivors. Escape pods. Emergency beacons, something. Kreshvin's claws scraped against the transparent steel of the viewport. Beyond it, the home world of the Catherine turned slowly, beautiful and ignorant of the growing crisis. The Supreme Council had been patient at first. Fleet Commander Zalthor was known for his thoroughness. Perhaps he was simply ensuring complete victory before reporting. But days became weeks and weeks became months. Now the Council demanded answers that Kreshvin could not provide. Prepare reconnaissance drones, he finally commanded. Full stealth configuration. I want them in the Sol system within 2 weeks. And I want answers. The drones were technological marvels, no larger than a human hand, nearly invisible to sensors, capable of faster-than-light travel through microjumps. 20 of them launched in a swarm, each programmed with slightly different search parameters. They would find the fleet, determine what had happened, and return with data. Kreshvin waited. 2 weeks for travel, 1 week for reconnaissance. 2 weeks return. 5 weeks of uncertainty while the Empire held its breath. The first drone returned ahead of schedule. That should have been a good sign. It wasn't. Telshar's face went pale as she processed the incoming data. Admiral, you need to see this. The holographic display activated, showing the Sol system as captured by the drone's sensors. Kreshvin stepped closer, studying the image. At first everything seemed normal. The yellow star, the 9 planets, the asteroid belt. But then he saw the debris fields. They were everywhere. Massive clouds of wreckage orbiting the 3rd planet, shattered hull plates bearing Catherine military markings, weapons arrays torn from their mountings, entire sections of ships tumbling through the void. The fleet, Telshar whispered. That's our fleet. But it was the close-up images that made Kreshvin's blood run cold. The drone had approached several larger pieces of wreckage, its sensors recording every detail. What it found defied explanation. Hull breaches, but not from energy weapons. These were torn open from the inside. Bulkheads shredded by explosives planted in critical locations. Life support systems deliberately destroyed. And on one piece of wreckage that had once been the command deck of a destroyer, symbols were painted in what analysis confirmed was Catherine blood. The symbols were human letters. They spelled no mercy. What kind of species does this? Telshar asked, her voice trembling. They couldn't have defeated us. They're primitive, the assessment said. The assessment was wrong. Kreshovan forced himself to study the images, though every instinct screamed at him to look away. Send out all the drones. I want every piece of significant wreckage analyzed. I want to know what happened. Over the next week, the remaining drones returned one by one, each carrying more horrifying data than the last. The picture that emerged was not one of battle, but of slaughter. The Catherine fleet had been systematically destroyed, and not by superior technology. One drone had recovered a partial black box from a frigate. The recording was fragmented, damaged by fire and vacuum exposure, but what remained was enough. Kreshovan played it for the senior staff in a sealed chamber, far from the ears of the general population. Static filled the first few seconds. Then a voice. Commander rank by the tone. Breach on deck 7 through 12. Security teams are not responding. Something is wrong. The humans, they're not fighting like an explosion, screams. Then another voice, younger, terrified. They're inside the ship. How are they inside? We're in space. They should be dead. More explosions. The sound of weapons fire. Then a human voice speaking in their language, raw with aggression. The translation came through cold and mechanical. For New York, for Mumbai, for every person you plan to enslave. The Catherine voice again, now edged with panic. They won't stop. We've killed dozens of them, but they keep coming. They're in environmental systems. They're in engineering. They're... A scream. Cut short. Then silence, except for a distant sound. Singing. Human singing. The melody strange and haunting. The recording ended. No one in the chamber spoke for a long moment. Kreshovan replayed the recording, listening carefully to every detail. The humans had boarded the ships. Somehow, impossibly, they had reached vessels in space and fought their way inside, and they had done this not to one ship, but across the entire fleet. What were they singing? Asked one of the tactical officers. Telshar checked the translation database. It's called a battle hymn. Humans have many of them. This one is titled The Marine's Hymn. It's about warriors who fight in air, land, and space. There's a line that translates roughly to, "We have fought in every clime and place where we could take a gun." They're insane, someone muttered. Kreshovan shook his head slowly. No, there's something worse. They're committed. More drones returned with more evidence. One had captured images of the human orbital infrastructure. In 3 months, they had transformed their near-space environment. Stations that had been simple research facilities were now armed fortresses. Salvage Catherine technology was everywhere, already integrated into human systems. They had taken the weapons, the shields, the drives from the destroyed fleet and were using them. The humans were learning. Fast, another recording was recovered. This one from a Catherine soldier's personal device. It showed the interior of a ship's corridor. Human soldiers advanced in tight formation, their movements precise and professional. They wore armor cobbled together from human and Catherine materials. Their weapons were primitive kinetic firearms augmented with captured energy cells. What struck Kreshovan was not their equipment, but their faces. He could see their expressions through the transparent visors of their helmets. They were not afraid. They were angry, focused, determined. And worse, they were coordinated in a way the intelligence reports had said was impossible for humans. They united, Telshar said, voicing what everyone was thinking. The report said they were divided into competing nations, that they could never work together, but they're fighting as one force. Kreshovan accessed the drone data again, looking at the broader patterns. Human military forces from dozens of nations were operating in perfect coordination. Ships with different flags worked side by side. Languages that human couldn't normally understand flowed through translation systems. The threat had unified them in a way nothing else ever had. Find more recordings, he ordered. I need to understand what happened in that first battle. I need to know how we lost 300 ships to a species that didn't even have energy shields. The answer came from the most intact black box, recovered from a ship that had apparently been crippled early in the battle. The recording was nearly complete, and it told a story that would haunt the Empire for generations. The Catherine fleet had approached Earth expecting easy victory. They had fired the first shot, attempting to destroy Beijing as a demonstration. But the humans had been ready. The network of satellites that dispersed the energy beam had been deployed weeks earlier, when the first human telescopes detected the approaching fleet. The humans had known the Catherine were coming. They had watched the fleet cross light years of space, and they had prepared. The nuclear detonations in orbit had been coordinated to create maximum electromagnetic disruption. The boarding parties had launched the moment the Catherine shields flickered. Thousands of humans had died in that first assault, their bodies frozen in the void, but they had damaged enough ships to create chaos in the formation, and then the real attack began. The recording showed weapons the Catherine had not anticipated. Computer viruses designed specifically to target their systems, biological agents that affected Catherine physiology, kinetic kill vehicles traveling at a significant fraction of light speed, launched from railguns on the lunar surface. The humans had thrown everything they had at the fleet, holding nothing back. But it was the boarding actions that had broken the Catherine forces. Humans in spacesuits and armor had breached ship after ship. They died in horrific numbers, but they kept coming. For every human that fell, 2 more took their place. They fought in corridors designed for creatures twice their size. They used explosives with reckless abandon, sometimes killing themselves to destroy critical ship systems. One section of recording showed a human soldier, severely wounded, dragging himself toward a ship's reactor core. A Catherine officer tried to stop him. The human detonated explosives strapped to his chest, destroying himself, the officer, and the reactor containment field. The ship had gone critical minutes later. "They're willing to die," Telshar said in horror. "They don't retreat. They don't surrender. They just keep fighting until they win or they're all dead." Kreshevan had seen enough. He gathered all the data, all the recordings, all the analysis, and prepared his report for the Supreme Council. The news would devastate the Empire's confidence. 300 ships destroyed. Perhaps 50,000 crew members dead or missing, and the humans were still there, still armed, now enhanced with Catherine technology. But before he sent the report, one final drone returned. This one carried something different, a message from the humans. It was a simple text transmission, sent on frequencies the Catherine had used for their initial demand of surrender. The message was in perfect Catherine language, which meant they had already cracked the Empire's linguistic codes. To the Catherine Empire, "You came to our world seeking to conquer us. You believed we were weak because we fought among ourselves. You were wrong. When threatened, we are capable of putting aside every difference. We are capable of total war. We are capable of sacrifice you cannot comprehend. Your fleet is destroyed. Your ships are ours. Your technology is ours. We do not wish to continue this war. But if you send another fleet, we will do this again. And next time, we will not stop at defending our world. We will come to yours. Think carefully before you test us again. Signed, the United Government of Earth." The message ended with an attachment, a video file. Kreshevan played it with shaking hands. It showed rows of Catherine prisoners, hundreds of them, sitting in what appeared to be a converted hangar. They were alive, but their faces showed trauma that went beyond physical injury. Human guards stood watch, their weapons ready. A human officer spoke directly to the camera. "We have treated your people according to our laws of war. They have been fed. They have been given medical care. They have not been tortured or abused. When this is over, we will return them to you. But understand this. We took prisoners because we chose to. Because we are better than you thought we were. We could have killed them all. We still can. The choice of what happens next is yours." The recording ended. Kreshevan sat in silence for a long time, staring at the blank screen. The implications crashed over him like waves. The humans had won. Against every prediction, every assessment, every certainty the Empire had held, these primitives had defeated a fleet that should have crushed them in hours. And now they had hostages. They had technology. They had momentum. And most terrifying of all, they had sent a message that was not a plea for peace but a promise of greater violence if provoked. "What do we tell the Council?" Telshar asked quietly. "The truth," Kreshevan replied. that we have found an enemy unlike any we have faced before, an enemy that will not be conquered, an enemy that grows stronger from conflict, and that if we are wise, we will never ever go to Earth again. The Supreme Council would not want to hear it. The Empire had never retreated from a challenge, but Kreshevan had seen the recordings. He had heard the screams of his people as humans carved through their ships like vengeful spirits. He had seen the determination in human eyes and heard the defiance in their voices. The Catherine Empire had finally met a species that would rather die than submit. And in that meeting, the Empire had learned the most terrifying lesson of all. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was something far more dangerous. They were survivors who had learned to hunt. Captain Vekrin had never expected to be part of history. He was a scientist, not a warrior. His ship, the Silent Observer, was designed for stealth and reconnaissance, not combat. Its hull was lined with sensor-dampening materials that made it nearly invisible to detection. Its weapons were minimal, just enough for self-defense. Everything about the vessel was built for one purpose: to watch without being seen. Now he was watching humanity, and what he saw terrified him. The Supreme Council had debated for weeks after Admiral Kreshevan's report. Some members wanted immediate retaliation. Others argued for caution. In the end, caution won, but barely. The Council needed more information before deciding how to respond to this unprecedented disaster. They needed to understand what had happened, how it had happened, and most importantly, what humanity was capable of now. That was where Vekrin came in. His mission was simple in theory but dangerous in practice. Enter the Sol system undetected, observe human activity, gather intelligence on their current capabilities, avoid contact at all costs, and return with answers. The Silent Observer emerged from jump space at the edge of the Sol system, far beyond the orbit of the outermost planet. Vekrin had chosen the entry point carefully, using gravitational shadows and radiation from the local star to mask their arrival. For now, they were just another piece of cosmic background noise. Begin passive scans, he ordered. No active sensors. I don't want them to know we're here. His science officer, a brilliant female named Shaleen, activated the observation systems. Instantly, the ship's computers began processing incoming data from across the electromagnetic spectrum. What they found made everyone on the bridge stop and stare. Captain, Shaleen said slowly, the system is completely different from what our intelligence showed. The holographic display updated, showing the inner solar system. 3 months ago, there had been a handful of space stations orbiting Earth and a few research outposts on the Moon. Now there were hundreds of structures, battle stations bristling with weapons, shipyards actively constructing vessels, mining operations on asteroids that had been untouched before. The entire near-Earth environment had been transformed into a military-industrial complex. They've been busy, Vekrin muttered. He zoomed the display in on one of the larger stations. What is that? Shaleen ran analysis programs. It appears to be a shipyard, Captain, but the design is unusual. It's using both human and Catherine construction techniques. They've integrated our technology into their own. Show me the ships. The image shifted to show the vessels under construction. Vekrin felt his stomach's knot. The ships were human in basic design but enhanced with Catherine technology. Energy shields, quantum drives, weapons that no species should have been able to reverse engineer in mere months. But there they were, being built by humans who 3 months ago couldn't travel faster than light. How is this possible? Asked the navigation officer. It took the Empire centuries to develop some of that technology. Because we weren't desperate, Vekrin replied quietly. Desperation accelerates innovation. The humans knew another fleet might come. They're preparing. The Silent Observer moved deeper into the system, maintaining stealth protocols. Vekrin ordered constant monitoring of all communications. The amount of radio and data traffic coming from Earth and its orbital facilities was staggering. The humans communicated constantly, coordinating efforts across their entire planet in dozens of languages. Captain, I've isolated military communications, Shaleen reported. The encryption is advanced, but I think I can break it. Give me a few hours. Do it. I want to know what they're saying. While Shaleen worked on the encryption, Vecrin studied the physical evidence of the battle. The debris fields were still there, slowly spreading across orbital space. Recovery operations were ongoing. Human ships moved among the wreckage, salvaging anything of value. Bodies were being collected and stored, presumably for later return. The humans were methodical and efficient, wasting nothing. One transmission caught his attention. It was unencrypted, broadcast in the open for anyone to hear. A human voice speaking in what the translator identified as English. Recovery Team 7 to command. We found another survivor pod. Catherine life signs detected. Bringing them in. Another survivor. Vecrin felt a surge of hope. Perhaps some of the fleet's crew had escaped after all, but then he listened to the rest of the transmission. Be careful with this one. The last survivor we found tried to kill himself rather than be captured. Keep them sedated until we reach the holding facility. Kill himself. Vecrin understood immediately. Whatever the humans had done to the captured Catherine, it had been bad enough that death seemed preferable to continued captivity. What had happened during those interrogations? Shaolin finally cracked the military encryption. The information that flowed through the ship's computers was overwhelming. Battle reports, strategic assessments, resource allocations, technology development updates. All of it painted a picture of a species that had mobilized every resource toward a single goal: survival through strength. Captain, you need to hear this, Shaolin said, her voice tight. I've found communications from before the battle, from when they first detected our fleet approaching. She played the recording. It was a conversation between human military leaders, dated 6 weeks before the Catherine fleet arrived at Earth. Telescopes confirm it. 300 ships, definitely not human origin, on approach vector for Earth. ETA 6 weeks. Jesus Christ. 300? Do we have any chance? Conventional military assessment says no. They'll glass our major cities before we can mount effective resistance. But we're not going conventional, we're going total. Explain. We unite every nation under emergency protocols. We pool every resource, every weapon, every soldier. We prepare orbital defenses using every satellite we can repurpose. We mine the approach vectors. We prepare boarding teams. Boarding teams? We're going to board alien warships? If they get close enough, yes. We can't win a straight fight, so we don't fight straight. We use every dirty trick we've ever invented. Chemical weapons, biological weapons, cyber warfare, nuclear weapons, suicide attacks if necessary. We make it so costly for them that even if they win, they'll never come back. That's insane. That's survival. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. Time to show these aliens what humans are really good at. The recording ended. Vecrin sat back in his chair, processing what he had just heard. The humans had known the fleet was coming for 6 weeks. They had used that time to prepare a defense that should have been impossible. More than that, they had prepared to fight in ways the Catherine had never anticipated. Find more, he ordered. I want to know everything about how they fought. Over the next several days, the silent observer collected data from hundreds of sources, intercepted communications, recovered logs, even human news broadcasts that discussed the battle openly. Slowly, a complete picture emerged of what humanity had done. The dispersal of the energy beam aimed at Beijing had been just the beginning. Every nation on Earth had contributed to the defense. Russian nuclear weapons created the electromagnetic pulse. Chinese railguns on the moon provided kinetic strikes. American cyber warfare teams launched virus attacks on Catherine computer systems. European nations coordinated the logistics. African nations provided rare earth minerals for emergency weapon production. Asian manufacturing centers worked around the clock to produce equipment. But it was the boarding actions that had decided the battle. Humans had trained for weeks on how to breach a spaceship in zero gravity. They had studied every piece of intelligence about Catherine anatomy to find weak points. They had designed weapons specifically to penetrate Catherine armor. And they had recruited volunteers who understood they would probably die. Thousands had volunteered. Tens of thousands. One recording showed a briefing to a boarding team. The human officer's words were blunt and honest. You're probably not coming back. The enemy ships are designed to kill boarders. You'll face superior numbers in confined spaces. Your chances of survival are less than 20%. But if you succeed, if you can disable or destroy your target ship, you'll save millions of lives on Earth. So I'm asking you, who's willing to go? Every hand in the room went up. Vekrin watched that recording 3 times, trying to understand the psychology behind it. Humans knew they would die, yet they went anyway. Not because they were forced. Not because they were drugged or brainwashed. But because they believed their sacrifice mattered. They have a concept they call the greater good, Shaleen explained after researching human philosophy. The idea that individual survival is less important than the survival of the group. In their history, countless humans have died to protect others. They call it heroism. It's suicide, the tactical officer said. No, Vekrin corrected. Suicide is meaningless death. This is sacrifice with purpose. It's far more dangerous. The silent observer continued its observations, moving carefully through the system. Vekrin wanted to get closer to Earth itself, to see the planet that had defied the Empire. But that required extreme caution. Human sensor networks were far more sophisticated now. Upgraded with Catherine technology, they were detected anyway. The alarm came without warning. Shaleen's console lit up with proximity alerts.
Captain, we have company.
3 human ships, they've changed course to intercept us. That's impossible. We're in full stealth mode. Apparently it's not impossible anymore, Captain. They're hailing us. Vekrin's hearts raced. Being detected meant potential capture or destruction. But he had to know. Put it through. The human voice that came through the speakers was calm and professional. Unknown vessel. This is Earth Defense Cruiser Defiant. We know you're there. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded for inspection or we will fire. You have 60 seconds to comply. The Defiant. Vekrin pulled up information on the ship. It was one of the new hybrid vessels, human frame with Catherine systems. Fast, well-armed, and closing rapidly. How did they find us? He demanded. Shaleen was frantically analyzing sensor data. They're using a detection method we haven't seen before. It's based on quantum field fluctuations. They must have developed it from captured technology. Captain, our stealth systems are useless against it. Vekrin made a decision. They had learned enough. Staying meant capture, and he had no illusions about what human interrogation would be like. Prepare emergency jump. Get us out of here. Jump drive needs 2 minutes to charge. Then buy me 2 minutes. Evasive maneuvers. The silent observer accelerated, trying to put distance between itself and the approaching human ships. But the Defiant was faster. Much faster. And it wasn't alone. 2 more ships appeared from different vectors, coordinating their approach with military precision. They're trying to box us in, the tactical officer reported. Captain, they're good. Really good. Of course they were. Humans had been fighting each other in 3 dimensions for decades. They understood tactics and strategy in ways that came from hard experience. The Catherine had conquered lesser species. Humans had fought equals. Weapons fire lanced through space. The Defiant was shooting not to destroy but to disable. Precision strikes aimed at the silent observer's engines and communications array. Vekrin felt his ship shudder as a blast clipped the port stabilizer. Jump drive at 80%, Shaleen called out. Another hit. Systems alarm screamed throughout the ship. The humans were walking their fire closer, herding the silent observer into a kill box where escape would be impossible. 90%. 95%. The human voice came through again. Final warning. Power down or be destroyed. 100%. Jump drive ready. Go. Vekrin shouted. Reality twisted. The silent observer tore a hole in space and vanished, leaving the human ships behind. The jump was rough, poorly calculated, sending the ship tumbling through hyperspace before stabilizers compensated. But they were away. They were safe. Vekrin slumped in his chair, breathing heavily. Around him, his crew worked to assess damage and plot a course back to Catherine space. They had escaped, but barely. And the humans had let them go, Vekrin realized. Those final shots had been warnings, not serious attempts to destroy. The humans could have killed them, but chose not to. A message. They wanted the silent observer to return home. They wanted the Empire to know what they had seen. Get me all the data we collected, Vekrin ordered. Every recording, every intercept, every observation. The Supreme Council needs to see this. What will we tell them, Captain? Shaleen asked quietly. Vekrin looked at the retreating image of Earth on his displays. That beautiful blue world that had destroyed an empire's fleet and emerged stronger from the conflict. He thought about the humans he had observed, their determination, their unity, their willingness to sacrifice everything for survival. "We'll tell them the truth," he said, "that we didn't lose to a primitive species. We lost to a species that has been preparing for war since before they discovered fire. We lost to a species that turns every challenge into a weapon. We lost to humanity. And what should the Empire do now?" Vekrin had no answer to that. The traditional response would be to send a larger fleet, to overwhelm the humans through sheer numbers. But he had seen how quickly they learned, how rapidly they adapted. In 3 months they had gone from chemical rockets to quantum drives. What would they be capable of in a year? In 5 years? "That's for the Council to decide," he finally said. "But if they ask my opinion, I'll tell them to leave Earth alone. Because the next time we go there, the humans won't be defending their home. They'll be bringing the war to us." The silent observer limped toward home, carrying data that would change everything the Catherine Empire believed about itself and its place in the galaxy. Somewhere behind them, humanity continued building, learning, preparing for whatever came next. The age of easy conquest was over. A new power had emerged, forged in the fire of desperate survival, and that power had a name that would soon echo across the stars: humanity. The Grand Council chamber had never been so silent. Captain Vekrin stood at the center of the massive room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the data his ship had collected from the Sol system. Above him, arranged in ascending tiers that reached toward the domed ceiling, sat the Supreme Council of the Catherine Empire. 50 of the most powerful individuals in known space, their faces grave as they absorbed the information being presented. Supreme Leader Krathnak sat on the highest throne, his ancient eyes fixed on the human ships displayed in the hologram. He had ruled for 3 centuries. He had overseen the conquest of 47 star systems. Never in his long reign had he faced a situation like this. "Explain to us again," he said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "How 300 warships were destroyed by a species that did not possess faster-than-light travel 3 months ago." Vekrin had been preparing for this moment during the entire journey home. He had rehearsed his words, organized his evidence, and steeled himself for the disbelief he would face. The Council would not want to believe that the Empire's greatest fleet had been crushed by primitives. They would look for excuses, for explanations that preserved their worldview, but there were no comfortable explanations. Only the brutal truth. "Supreme Leader, Council members," Vekrin began, "the humans defeated our fleet because we fundamentally misunderstood what kind of species they are. Our intelligence assessments were based on their technological level, but we failed to evaluate their tactical sophistication, their strategic thinking, and most critically, their psychology." He activated the first recording, the one that had been recovered from Fleet Commander Zalthor's ship. The Council watched as human boarding teams carved through Catherine defenses with brutal efficiency. They heard the screams. They saw the carnage. Several Council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "The humans knew we were coming 6 weeks before we arrived," Vekrin continued. "Their telescopes detected the fleet while we were still in deep space. They used that time to prepare a defense that exploited every weakness in our tactics." "Impossible," Council member Braycath interrupted. "Our approach was classified. Even if they detected ships, they couldn't have known our capabilities or our intentions." Vekrin had anticipated this objection. They assumed the worst-case scenario and planned accordingly. They prepared for an enemy with superior technology, superior numbers, and hostile intent. And they prepared to fight not a limited war, but what they call total war. He brought up another display, showing human military doctrine. Total war is a concept where every resource, every citizen, every industry is mobilized toward victory. Nothing is held back. No sacrifice is too great. The humans have refined this concept over thousands of years of fighting each other. The next recording showed the human boarding teams being briefed before their mission. The Council watched as volunteers raised their hands, knowing they were accepting near certain death. Vekrin could see the confusion on some Council members' faces. Why would anyone volunteer to die? Human psychology is built around something they call tribalism, Vekrin explained. When threatened from outside, they will set aside internal differences and unite against the common enemy. We attacked Earth expecting to find 200 divided nations. Instead, we found 8 billion humans fighting as one force. Admiral Kreshvin, who had sponsored Vekran's reconnaissance mission, spoke up. Captain, show them the weapons analysis. Vekran nodded and brought up technical data. The humans used multiple attack vectors simultaneously. First, electromagnetic pulse weapons to disrupt our shields. Then kinetic strikes from railguns on their moon. Then cyber attacks specifically designed to exploit vulnerabilities in our computer systems. And finally, massed boarding actions. How did they board ships in space? Another council member asked. They had no spacecraft capable of matching our speed. They didn't need to match our speed, Counselor. They launched humans directly from railguns and rocket platforms. Thousands of them, wearing primitive spacesuits and carrying explosives. Most died in the void, but enough survived to reach our ships. And once inside, they used tactics learned from centuries of urban warfare. Vekran showed footage of humans fighting in the corridors of a Catherine destroyer. They moved in coordinated teams using cover effectively, communicating constantly. They threw grenades around corners and used shaped charges to blow through bulkheads. They were outmatched in size and strength by Catherine soldiers, but they compensated with superior tactics and an absolute refusal to retreat. They took casualties at a ratio of 10-1, Vekran said quietly, but they kept coming. For every human we killed, 2 more appeared. They fought in shifts, never allowing our crews to rest or regroup. They sabotaged life support, destroyed power systems, and specifically targeted command and control centers. The council watched in silence as the recordings showed ship after ship falling to human assault teams. Sometimes the ships were destroyed completely. Other times they were captured, their crews killed or taken prisoner. The pattern was always the same. Relentless, coordinated assault followed by systematic destruction of resistance. Show them the prisoners, Krathnak commanded. Vekran hesitated, then complied. The footage showed Catherine captives in human detention facilities. They were alive and appeared physically healthy, but their eyes held a haunted look that spoke of psychological trauma. Human guards stood watch, but they weren't abusive. They were simply present, a constant reminder of defeat and captivity. We estimate the humans took approximately 500 prisoners, Vekran reported. They have treated them according to their laws of war, which forbid torture and require humane treatment. However, the interrogations were effective. He showed the council records of what the prisoners had revealed under questioning. The humans had learned everything about Catherine military organization, fleet tactics, technological capabilities, and most dangerously, the locations of imperial worlds, all without using physical torture, relying instead on psychological pressure and clever questioning. They recorded everything, Vekran said. Every battle, every interrogation, every moment of our defeat. And they broadcast it, not just to us, but to every species within communications range. They wanted the galaxy to know what happened when someone tried to conquer Earth. He played the human message, the one directed at the Catherine Empire. The council listened as the human spokesman calmly explained that they were ready to return prisoners, ready to negotiate peace, but also ready to continue the war if necessary. The threat was clear. Attack again, and we will bring the war to your worlds. Supreme Leader Krathnak was silent for a long moment. Then he asked the question everyone was thinking. What are they capable of now? Vekran brought up the latest observations from the Sol system. In 3 months, they have reverse-engineered our shield technology, our quantum drives, and our energy weapons. They are building warships that combine their tactical doctrine with our technology. Conservatively, within 1 year, they will have a fleet capable of projecting power beyond their solar system. Within 5 years, they could threaten Catherine space. The council chamber erupted in angry voices. Some members demanded immediate retaliation. Others argued for caution. The debate raged until Krathnak raised one massive hand for silence. What is your assessment, Captain? What should the Empire do? Vekran had known this question was coming. He had an entire journey home to consider his answer. As a military officer, he should recommend overwhelming force. As a scientist, he knew what the data showed. Supreme Leader, I believe we face 3 options. First, we could send a larger fleet, perhaps 2,000 ships, and attempt to overwhelm Earth through sheer numbers. But the humans are learning fast. They will adapt to whatever we send. And they have shown they are willing to accept catastrophic casualties to achieve victory. He paused, gathering his courage for what came next. Second, we could attempt a surprise attack using weapons of mass destruction to destroy Earth before they can respond. sterilize the entire planet. But this would require us to commit genocide against 8 billion sentients, and it would make enemies of every species in the galaxy. The humans have already shared their story widely. We would become the villains. And the third option? Krathnak asked. Peace. Negotiate a treaty that acknowledges Earth as an independent power. Return the prisoners as a gesture of good faith. Establish diplomatic relations. The humans have shown they do not seek conquest. They only want to be left alone. If we give them that, if we accept them as equals, we can avoid further conflict. The council chamber exploded again. Accept primitives as equals? Negotiate with species that had humiliated the Empire? It was unthinkable to many council members. The Empire did not negotiate with lesser species. The Empire conquered. But Admiral Kreshevan stood and spoke with the authority of his rank. Council members, we must face reality. The humans are not primitives anymore. They have our technology. They have proven tactical superiority, and they have something we lack. Unity forged in desperation. If we continue this war, we will lose ships, we will lose soldiers, and we may lose worlds. Is pride worth that cost? Council member Brekath, who had been skeptical throughout, asked the hard question. If we negotiate peace with the humans, what message does that send to other species? That they can resist the Empire and win? Perhaps, Kreshevan replied. Or perhaps it sends the message that the Empire is wise enough to recognize when conquest is not worth the price. We have 47 systems. We are wealthy and powerful. Must we have 48 if it costs us everything? The debate continued for hours. Vakrin stood at the center, answering questions, showing evidence, explaining again and again what he had witnessed. Slowly, the council began to understand the scope of what had happened. This was not a military setback. It was a fundamental challenge to the Empire's worldview. Finally, as the discussion began to wind down, Supreme Leader Krathnak spoke again. Captain Vakrin, you have seen the humans up close. You have studied their tactics and their psychology. Tell me truly, if we negotiate peace, will they honor it? Vakrin thought about the recordings he had seen. Humans singing battle hymns as they charged to certain death. Humans coordinating across language and cultural barriers. Humans who had captured enemy soldiers and treated them with dignity, even after suffering terrible losses. Yes, Supreme Leader. I believe they will honor a fair peace treaty. Humans have a concept they call honor. It means keeping your word even when it's difficult. They also have a saying, peace through strength. They will negotiate from a position of power, but if we offer fair terms, I believe they will accept. And if we send another fleet? Then they will fight, and they will win, because they have already proven they can learn faster than we can adapt, because they are unified in a way we are not, and because they are willing to pay any price to protect their home. Krathnak sat back in his throne, his ancient face unreadable. Around him, the council waited for his judgment. The decision he made would affect the Empire for generations. Attack and risk everything. Negotiate and accept limitations to imperial power. Or do nothing and hope the humans remained in their own system. We will vote, Krathnak finally declared. But first I want every council member to watch all of Captain Vakrin's recordings. See what I have seen. Understand what we face. Then we will decide the future of the Catherine Empire. Vakrin bowed and stepped back. The council would deliberate and eventually they would vote. But he had done his duty. He had shown them the truth, no matter how uncomfortable that truth might be. As he left the chamber, Shaleen was waiting for him. How did it go, Captain? As well as could be expected. They're scared, good. Fear breeds caution, and caution might keep us alive. Do you think they'll choose peace? Vakrin looked up at the stars visible through the station's dome. Out there, somewhere in the vast darkness, was a small blue planet inhabited by a species that had learned to fight before they learned to build. A species that had looked at certain defeat and decided to fight anyway. A species that was even now preparing for the possibility that the Empire might return. I hope so, he said quietly. Because if they don't, if we go back to Earth with another fleet, we won't be fighting a primitive species anymore. We'll be fighting an enemy that knows how to beat us, and that enemy will not stop at defending their home. They'll bring the war to us, and we'll lose. The truth hung in the air between them, heavy and undeniable. The age of easy conquest was over. Humanity had seen to that. Now the only question was whether the Catherine Empire was wise enough to accept the new reality before it was too late. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Earth, as humans now called it. 1 year since the Catherine Empire had lost 300 ships and learned that the galaxy was not theirs to command. 1 year of debate, deliberation, and dawning realization that the universe had changed forever. The Supreme Council had voted narrowly to pursue peace. Not because they wanted to, but because the alternative was unthinkable. In the months following that decision, the Empire had watched Earth's development with growing unease. Human ships now patrolled the Sol system with confidence. Human technology advanced at a pace that defied understanding, and human messages to the galaxy spoke of cooperation and mutual defense, not conquest. But the humans had also kept their word. Catherine prisoners had been returned, healthy if traumatized. No human ships had entered Imperial space without permission. The threats had been clear, but the actions had been measured. Earth was extending an olive branch while keeping a sword close at hand. Now representatives from both sides would meet to negotiate terms. The location chosen was neutral space, a system equidistant from both Earth and the Catherine home world. And the humans had made it clear. They would come in force, not to threaten, but to show they could not be intimidated. Admiral Kreshvin commanded the Catherine delegation. His ship, the Eternal Vigilance, was accompanied by 20 escorts, a show of strength but not aggression. He stood on his bridge watching the human fleet emerge from faster-than-light travel, with a mixture of awe and dread. There were 50 ships in the human formation. Each one was different, reflecting the diverse nations that had united to build them. Some were sleek and modern, others looked cobbled together from salvaged technology, but they all shared one characteristic. They radiated competence. These were not the ships of a species playing at space warfare. These were warships built by people who understood violence. They're hailing us. Admiral, the communications officer reported. Accept. The view screen activated, showing a human female in what appeared to be a military uniform. Her skin was dark, her hair cut short in a style Kreshvin had learned indicated military service. Behind her, the bridge of her ship hummed with activity. Admiral Kreshvin, she said in perfect Catherine language. I am Admiral Chen Wei of the Earth Defense Forces. Thank you for agreeing to meet. We come in peace, but as you can see, we come prepared. Kreshvin inclined his head in a gesture of respect. Admiral Chen, the Catherine Empire is ready to discuss terms. We acknowledge that the previous conflict was unfortunate. Chen's expression didn't change, but Kreshvin caught a flash of something in her eyes. Anger, perhaps, at the casual dismissal of 80,000 human deaths. But she controlled herself. Yes, unfortunate. Let's make sure it never happens again. I'm transmitting coordinates for the negotiation station. Shall we proceed? The station was small, built by neutral traders who operated in this region of space. It had conference facilities designed to accommodate multiple species. Kreshvin arrived with a delegation of 10, including Captain Vekrin, who had become the Empire's leading expert on human psychology. The human delegation was the same size, led by Admiral Chen and including diplomats from multiple Earth nations. The first meeting was formal and tense. Both sides presented their positions. The humans wanted several things: official recognition of Earth's sovereignty, return of all Catherine technology and weapons from captured ships, reparations for the attempted invasion, and a non-aggression pact that would bind both parties for at least 100 years. The Catherine Empire's position was more defensive. They wanted assurances that humans would not seek revenge, would not share captured technology with other species, and would not interfere in imperial affairs within existing Catherine space. The negotiations lasted for weeks. Every detail was debated, every clause examined from every angle. The humans were tough negotiators, never accepting vague language or half measures. They wanted everything in writing, everything explicit, everything enforceable. During a break in one session, Kreshvin found himself alone with Admiral Chen on one of the station's observation decks. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the stars. Your people fought well, Kreshvin finally said. Chen turned to look at him. 63,412. That's how many people we lost defending Earth. Soldiers, yes, but also civilians who were in the wrong place when your first strike came. Every one of them had a name, a family, dreams for the future. The weight of those numbers hung in the air. Kreshvin had seen casualty reports before, but humans had a way of making death personal that the Catherine did not share. We lost 48,000 crew members, he replied quietly. Most died in the first 3 days of the battle. Many more are still traumatized from their captivity. We treated them according to our laws, Chen said, her voice sharp. No torture, no abuse. Can you say the same about what your people planned for Earth? Kreshovan could not. The invasion plan had called for systematic enslavement of the human population. Those who resisted would have been eliminated. Those who complied would have been worked until they were no longer useful. It was the Empire's standard approach used on 47 previous worlds. No, he admitted. We cannot. Chen nodded, seeming to appreciate the honesty. Then let me be clear about something, Admiral. We don't want to be your enemies. We don't want to conquer your worlds or enslave your people. We just want to be left alone. But if you ever threaten Earth again, we will not defend. We will attack. We will bring the war to every Catherine world. We will make you feel what we felt when we saw your fleet approach our home. Do you understand? I understand. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Earth, as humans now called it. 1 year since the Catherine Empire had lost 300 ships and learned that the galaxy was not theirs to command. 1 year of debate, deliberation, and dawning realization that the universe had changed forever. The Supreme Council had voted narrowly to pursue peace. Not because they wanted to, but because the alternative was unthinkable. In the months following that decision, the Empire had watched Earth's development with growing unease. Human ships now patrolled the Sol system with confidence. Human technology advanced at a pace that defied understanding, and human messages to the galaxy spoke of cooperation and mutual defense, not conquest. But the humans had also kept their word. Catherine prisoners had been returned, healthy if traumatized. No human ships had entered Imperial space without permission. The threats had been clear, but the actions had been measured. Earth was extending an olive branch while keeping a sword close at hand. Now representatives from both sides would meet to negotiate terms. The location chosen was neutral space, a system equidistant from both Earth and the Catherine home world. And the humans had made it clear. They would come in force, not to threaten, but to show they could not be intimidated. Admiral Kreshovan commanded the Catherine delegation. His ship, the Eternal Vigilance, was accompanied by 20 escorts, a show of strength but not aggression. He stood on his bridge watching the human fleet emerge from faster-than-light travel, with a mixture of awe and dread. There were 50 ships in the human formation. Each one was different, reflecting the diverse nations that had united to build them. Some were sleek and modern, others looked cobbled together from salvaged technology, but they all shared one characteristic. They radiated competence. These were not the ships of a species playing at space warfare. These were warships built by people who understood violence. They're hailing us. Admiral, the communications officer reported. Accept. The view screen activated, showing a human female in what appeared to be a military uniform. Her skin was dark, her hair cut short in a style Kreshovan had learned indicated military service. Behind her, the bridge of her ship hummed with activity. Admiral Kreshovan, she said in perfect Catherine language. I am Admiral Chen Wei of the Earth Defense Forces. Thank you for agreeing to meet. We come in peace, but as you can see, we come prepared. Kreshovan inclined his head in a gesture of respect. Admiral Chen, the Catherine Empire is ready to discuss terms. We acknowledge that the previous conflict was unfortunate. Chen's expression didn't change, but Kreshovan caught a flash of something in her eyes. Anger, perhaps, at the casual dismissal of 80,000 human deaths. But she controlled herself. Yes, unfortunate. Let's make sure it never happens again. I'm transmitting coordinates for the negotiation station. Shall we proceed? The station was small, built by neutral traders who operated in this region of space. It had conference facilities designed to accommodate multiple species. Kreshovan arrived with a delegation of 10, including Captain Vekrin, who had become the Empire's leading expert on human psychology. The human delegation was the same size, led by Admiral Chen and including diplomats from multiple Earth nations. The first meeting was formal and tense. Both sides presented their positions. The humans wanted several things: official recognition of Earth's sovereignty, return of all Catherine technology and weapons from captured ships, reparations for the attempted invasion, and a non-aggression pact that would bind both parties for at least 100 years. The Catherine Empire's position was more defensive. They wanted assurances that humans would not seek revenge, would not share captured technology with other species, and would not interfere in imperial affairs within existing Catherine space. The negotiations lasted for weeks. Every detail was debated, every clause examined from every angle. The humans were tough negotiators, never accepting vague language or half measures. They wanted everything in writing, everything explicit, everything enforceable. During a break in one session, Kreshevan found himself alone with Admiral Chen on one of the station's observation decks. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the stars. "Your people fought well," Kreshevan finally said. Chen turned to look at him. 63,412. That's how many people we lost defending Earth. Soldiers, yes, but also civilians who were in the wrong place when your first strike came. Every one of them had a name, a family, dreams for the future. The weight of those numbers hung in the air. Kreshevan had seen casualty reports before, but humans had a way of making death personal that the Catherine did not share. "We lost 48,000 crew members," he replied quietly. "Most died in the first 3 days of the battle. Many more are still traumatized from their captivity. We treated them according to our laws," Chen said, her voice sharp. "No torture, no abuse. Can you say the same about what your people planned for Earth?" Kreshevan could not. The invasion plan had called for systematic enslavement of the human population. Those who resisted would have been eliminated. Those who complied would have been worked until they were no longer useful. It was the Empire's standard approach used on 47 previous worlds. "No," he admitted. "We cannot." Chen nodded, seeming to appreciate the honesty. "Then let me be clear about something, Admiral. We don't want to be your enemies. We don't want to conquer your worlds or enslave your people. We just want to be left alone. But if you ever threaten Earth again, we will not defend. We will attack. We will bring the war to every Catherine world. We will make you feel what we felt when we saw your fleet approach our home. Do you understand?" "I understand." "Good. Because there are other species watching this negotiation. Species your empire has conquered in the past. They've contacted us. They want to know if resistance is possible. They want to know if the empire can be beaten. What we do here, what treaty we sign, will send a message to the entire galaxy." Kreshevan felt a chill run through his body. He had not considered the wider implications. If other conquered species saw humans successfully negotiate as equals with the Empire, they might rebel. The Empire's carefully constructed order could collapse. "What message do you want to send?" he asked. Chen smiled, but it was not a warm expression. "That the age of empires built on conquest is ending. That species have a right to self-determination. That those who seek to dominate others will face consequences. Call it the Earth Doctrine." The negotiations continued, but the conversation with Chen had changed Kreshevan's perspective. This was not just about Earth and the Catherine Empire. This was about the future of the entire galaxy, and humans, whether they realized it or not, were positioning themselves as champions of the conquered. Finally, after 6 weeks of intense discussion, a treaty was drafted. The terms were harsh but fair. The Catherine Empire would formally recognize Earth's sovereignty and independence. They would pay reparations in the form of technology and resources. They would agree to a non-aggression pact lasting 200 years. And critically, they would not interfere if other species sought to negotiate similar arrangements. In return, humans would not share captured Catherine military technology with other species, would respect imperial borders, and would return all prisoners who wished to go home. The treaty included a provision for joint scientific research and cultural exchange, suggesting that one day, perhaps, the two species might become allies rather than enemies. The signing ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of species watched as Admiral Chen and Supreme Leader Krathnak placed their marks on the treaty document. It was a historic moment, the first time the Catherine Empire had negotiated as equals with a species they had tried to conquer. But it was what happened after the signing that truly shocked the galaxy. As the ceremony concluded, Admiral Chen approached the microphone and spoke directly to the assembled representatives and the countless species watching the broadcast. "Today, Earth and the Catherine Empire have chosen peace over war," she said. "But this treaty is about more than just our two peoples. It is a statement of principle. Every intelligent species has the right to determine their own destiny. Every species has the right to defend their home, and every species has the right to say no to conquest." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We know that many of you have suffered under imperial rule. We know that many of you have dreamed of freedom but believed it was impossible. Today we tell you that it is possible. Resistance is possible. Victory is possible. Peace is possible, but you must be willing to fight for it. Earth stands ready to assist any species that seeks to negotiate their independence. We will share our defensive technologies with those who ask. We will stand with those who stand for freedom. The age of easy conquest is over. The galaxy is changing, and humanity will be part of that change. The broadcast ended, but the repercussions were immediate. Within days, 3 species that the Catherine Empire had conquered sent diplomatic messages to Earth requesting assistance. Within weeks, 5 more joined them. The Empire's hold on its territories began to weaken as conquered peoples looked to Earth as an example and a potential ally. Kreshvin watched these developments with a mixture of resignation and respect. The humans had done exactly what he had feared. They had not just defeated the Empire militarily, they had defeated them ideologically. They had shown that resistance was possible and created a coalition of the willing. A message arrived for him from Captain Vekrin, who had returned to Catherine space to resume his research duties. The message was brief but significant. Admiral, the Council is meeting in emergency session. Several outer colonies are demanding greater autonomy. Some are threatening to seek Earth's protection if their demands are not met. The Empire is fracturing. What humans could not do with weapons, they are doing with ideas. I thought you should know. Kreshvin read the message 3 times, then deleted it. He understood now what was happening. The Empire had based its power on the assumption that resistance was futile, that superior technology and numbers would always prevail. Humans had shattered that assumption. They had shown that determination, unity, and willingness to sacrifice could overcome technological disadvantage. More importantly, they had shown that they survived. They had not just defeated the Catherine fleet. They had thrived in the aftermath. They had grown stronger, and that example was more powerful than any weapon. Months passed. The treaty held, though tensions remained high. Human ships began appearing at the edges of Catherine space, not threateningly, but as a constant reminder of their presence. More species negotiated independence or greater autonomy from the Empire. Some even joined together in a loose coalition, with Earth as an informal leader. The galaxy was reorganizing itself around a new principle: mutual defense and cooperation rather than conquest and domination. It was messy and chaotic, but it was also hopeful in a way the old order had never been. Kreshvin found himself thinking about a human saying he had learned during the negotiations. It came from their ancient history, spoken by a leader named Theodore Roosevelt. Speak softly and carry a big stick. Humans had proven they had a very big stick. 300 destroyed Catherine warships testified to that, but they were also speaking softly, offering cooperation and partnership to those who approached in good faith. It was a balance the Empire had never understood. One day Kreshvin received a message from Admiral Chen. It was personal, not official, and brief. Admiral, I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to tell you something I did not say during negotiations. Your people could have won if you had sent 5,000 ships instead of 300. If you had attacked without warning, if you had shown no mercy, you could have conquered Earth. But you didn't because you believed we were weak. You were wrong about that. But you were also wrong about something else. Strength is not just about weapons or numbers. It's about will. It's about what you're willing to endure and what you're willing to sacrifice. Your empire had numbers. We had will. That made all the difference. I hope we never have to test that equation again. But if we do, I hope you remember what happened last time. Peace, Admiral Chen. Kreshvin stared at the message for a long time. She was right, of course. The Empire could have won through overwhelming force. But they had been arrogant, and that arrogance had cost them everything. He composed a reply, carefully choosing his words. Admiral Chen, your words are wise, and I will not forget them. The Empire learned a harsh lesson about underestimating opponents. We will not make that mistake again. But I hope, as you do, that we never need to test ourselves against each other in combat. There is enough universe for both our peoples. Perhaps one day we will be allies rather than former enemies. Until then, I remain respectful of your people and cautious of your capabilities. Admiral Kreshvin. He sent the message and turned back to his duties. The Empire was changing, adapting to a new reality where conquest was no longer simple or safe. Some welcomed the change. Others resisted it. But everyone understood that the galaxy had fundamentally shifted. And at the center of that shift was a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star, a planet whose people had looked at impossible odds and decided to fight anyway. A planet that had paid a terrible price for victory but emerged stronger from the crucible. Earth. The Catherine Empire had 50 ships for every human vessel. They had technology developed over millennia. They had conquered 47 star systems. But none of that had mattered when they faced a species that refused to surrender. Kreshovan understood now why no survivors of the Earth assault had returned to tell a terrifying story. It was because humanity had written a different story. One where they were not victims but victors. One where they had taken the worst the galaxy could throw at them and survived. One where they had turned defense into offense and weakness into strength. And that story was spreading across the stars, inspiring others, changing everything. The Empire would endure, but it would never be the same. Because now every species knew the truth. Conquest was not inevitable. Resistance was possible. And somewhere in the cosmos, humanity stood ready to prove it again if necessary. The age of easy empires was over. The age of Earth had begun, and in the end that was the most terrifying story of all. The stars looked different through the windows of Commander Zaelthar's flagship. He stood on the bridge, his forearms crossed behind his back. His green skin reflected the blue light from the control panels. Behind him, 44 more warships waited in perfect formation. They were the pride of the Galactic Council, the strongest military force in known space. Today they had come to visit Earth. Zaelthar looked at the small blue planet on his main screen. The humans had just discovered how to travel faster than light. Their first ship had crossed into deep space 3 weeks ago. This had triggered the Council's automated systems. Any new species that could travel between stars had to be contacted. It was Council law. The commander turned to his second officer, a tall being with silver skin and 6 eyes. Her name was Mirath. What do we know about them? Zaelthar asked. Mirath touched her data pad. They call themselves humans. They are a young species. Our scouts say they have been in space for only 300 years. They have one home world and a few small colonies on nearby planets. Their technology is basic. They are a Class 7 civilization. Class 7 meant they were primitive. The Council ranked species from 1 to 10. Class 1 species were the most advanced. Class 10 species had just discovered fire. Class 7 meant the humans had rockets and computers, but nothing more. They were babies compared to the Council races. Have they responded to our greetings? Zaelthar asked. Yes, Commander. They seem confused but willing to talk. Their military has gone on alert. Typical behavior for a first contact situation. Zaelthar nodded. He had done this many times before. New species always reacted the same way. First shock, then fear, then acceptance. The Council would offer them a place in galactic society. They would become a protected species. That meant they would have to follow Council rules. They would mine resources for the Council. They would trade only with approved partners. They would learn their place in the galaxy. It was for their own good, really. Young species needed guidance. Without it, they would destroy themselves or make enemies they could not fight. The Council had kept the galaxy peaceful for 10,000 years. Every species had to contribute. Open a channel to the planet, Zaelthar ordered. The main screen changed. Now it showed a large room full of humans. They sat around tables, all looking up at cameras. Zaelthar recognized a government meeting room. The humans wore formal clothes. Some looked excited, others looked afraid. One older woman with gray hair sat at the center. She seemed calm. Greetings from the Galactic Council, Zaelthar said in perfect English. The Council's translation technology was excellent. I am Commander Zaelthar of the Vradix Hegemony. We welcome you to the galactic community. The older woman stood. I am President Martinez of the United Earth Government. We are honored by your visit. We have many questions. Of course, Zaelthar said with a smile that showed too many teeth. That is why we are here. The Council has a process for new species. We will teach you about the galaxy. We will help you understand your place in it. But first you must make a choice. What choice? President Martinez asked. Her face had become harder. You may join the Council as a protected species. You will have our guidance and our protection. You will trade with us and follow our laws. Or you may choose isolation. You will stay in your own solar system. You will not be allowed to travel to other stars. These are your only 2 options. The galaxy cannot have chaos. Silence filled the human meeting room. Zaelthar could see them looking at each other. Some were whispering. He knew this moment. They were realizing they had no real choice. A protected species was better than being trapped forever in their own system. How long do we have to decide? Martinez asked. 72 hours, Zalthar replied. That should be enough time. The screen went dark. Zalthar turned back to his crew. Everything was going according to plan. In 3 days, humanity would join the council. They would mine minerals from their system. They would provide workers for council projects. In a few generations, they would forget they ever had a choice. Mirath approached him. Commander, our sensors are picking up something strange. Strange how? From their moon. We are detecting energy readings. Very old energy signatures. They do not match anything in the human database. Zalthar frowned. The moon? Humans had been to their moon hundreds of years ago. They had small research bases there. Nothing important. It is probably old equipment, he said. Humans left a lot of garbage on their moon when they first visited it. Perhaps, Commander. But the readings are strong. And they are deep underground. Very deep. Now Zalthar was curious. He walked to the sensor station and looked at the data. Mirath was right. Something was buried under the lunar surface. The energy signature was unlike anything their sensors recognized. But that was impossible. The Council had been watching this system for centuries. There were no alien artifacts here, just humans and their primitive technology. Can you identify what is producing the energy? He asked. The sensor officer shook her head. No, Commander. Whatever it is very well shielded. Our scanners cannot penetrate it. But the structure is large, possibly several kilometers across. Several kilometers? That was huge. Too big to be a research station. Too big to be an accident. Could it be a weapon? Mirath asked quietly. Zalthar considered this. But no, that was ridiculous. Humans were Class 7. They had basic missiles and nuclear bombs. They did not have the technology to build something this size. And even if they did, why hide it on the moon? Why not tell the Council about it? Unless they were hiding it on purpose. Send a team to investigate, Zalthar ordered. I want to know what the humans are hiding. On Earth, President Martinez sat in her private office. Around her were the leaders of Earth's military. General Thompson, a tall man with gray hair, was speaking. We need to refuse their offer. Protected species is just another word for slave. But if we refuse, we will be trapped here, said Admiral Chen, an older woman in a naval uniform. We will never be able to explore the stars. Better trapped than enslaved, Thompson replied. Martinez held up her hand for silence. She was tired. This was the biggest decision humanity had ever faced. How could she choose between slavery and isolation? Her phone rang. She looked at the screen. It was a number she did not recognize. An old number. One that should not exist anymore. Excuse me, she said to the others. She answered the call in private. Hello? She said. An old voice answered, very old. Madam President, this is Dr. Sarah Chen. I need to speak with you immediately. It concerns the visitors. Martinez did not recognize the name, but something in the woman's voice made her pay attention.
Who are you?
I am the last surviving member of the Ragnarok project, and I have received an automated alert. The Council has found the facility. Martinez felt cold. The Ragnarok project. She had heard whispers about it. Stories that were supposed to be myths, something that happened 200 years ago, something buried and forgotten. I do not understand, she said. You will. I am sending you coordinates. Meet me there in 1 hour. Come alone. What I have to tell you will change everything. The call ended. Martinez stared at her phone. She should ignore this. It was probably a crazy person. But something told her to go. Something told her this was important. On the moon, the Council's team had landed. They stood outside a massive metal door built into the side of a crater. The door was covered in dust. It looked like it had been there for a very long time. This cannot be human, one of the soldiers said. Look at the construction. This is advanced engineering. The team leader scanned the door. The metal was something they did not recognize. It was stronger than anything in the Council database, and the door was sealed with technology that should not exist on a Class 7 world. Commander Zalthar needs to see this, the team leader said. They set up drilling equipment. Whatever was behind this door, they would find it. The Council had to know what the humans were hiding. As the drills started to cut into the ancient metal, something deep below began to wake. Systems that had been sleeping for 200 years started to activate. Lights flickered on in the darkness. Computers began to run diagnostic tests. A vast intelligence stirred from its long sleep. Deep in the mountain, in a chamber filled with old computers, a message appeared on a dusty screen. Perimeter. Breach detected, unknown forces attempting. Access initiating defensive protocols. Another message appeared. Checking. Crew status error. No crew detected. Checking. Earth status. Threat detected in orbit. Classification. Hostile fleet. A third message flashed. Ragnarok AI online. Running tactical. Assessment conclusion. Earth is in danger. The last message was simple awakening. President Martinez arrived at an old government building in the mountains of Colorado. The place looked abandoned. Windows were broken. Walls were covered in vines. She had brought 2 Secret Service agents with her. Though she told Dr. Chen she came alone, an old woman waited at the entrance. She must have been 90 years old, maybe older, but her eyes were sharp and clear. She wore a simple gray suit. When she saw Martinez, she smiled sadly. "Thank you for coming, Madam President," Dr. Chen said. "Please follow me." They walked through the abandoned building. Dr. Chen led them to an old elevator. It still worked. They went down, down for several minutes. Martinez realized they were going very deep underground. Finally, the elevator stopped. The doors opened to reveal a massive control room. It was old but clean. Someone had been maintaining it. Dozens of computer screens lined the walls. Most were dark, but a few were glowing with soft blue light. "What is this place?" Martinez asked. "This is Command Station Alpha," Dr. Chen said. "The control center for the Ragnarok project. I have been its guardian for 200 years. Dr. Chen walked to one of the active computers. She typed something. A huge screen on the wall lit up. It showed images and diagrams. Martinez stepped closer to look. In the year 2187, humanity faced extinction. Dr. Chen began. An asteroid was coming. Not a small one. It was the size of a mountain. Our scientists calculated it would hit Earth. The impact would kill billions. It would throw dust into the atmosphere for decades. Nothing would grow. The survivors would starve. Humanity would end. Martinez knew this story. Every child learned it in school. The great asteroid crisis. But humanity had survived. We tried everything. Dr. Chen continued. Nuclear missiles. Kinetic weapons. Nothing worked. The asteroid was too big. Too fast. We had only 5 years. The governments of Earth came together. They created the Ragnarok project. They gave us unlimited money. Unlimited resources. One mission, save humanity. The screen changed. It showed blueprints. Martinez stared at them. They were designs for a ship, but not like any ship she had ever seen. We gathered the greatest minds on Earth, Dr. Chen said. Physicists, engineers, weapons designers. We told them to break every rule, to ignore every limit. We gave them one goal. Build something that could destroy that asteroid. Cost did not matter. Ethics did not matter. Only survival mattered. And they succeeded? Martinez asked. Oh yes, Dr. Chen said softly. They succeeded beyond our wildest hopes and our darkest fears. The screen showed more images. A massive construction site on the moon, thousands of workers, enormous machines, all building something deep underground. We built it on the far side of the moon, Dr. Chen explained, away from Earth in secret. We did not want to cause panic. The ship took 4 years to complete. We called it Ragnarok. In ancient mythology, Ragnarok was the end of the world. We thought it was fitting. This ship was designed to fight the end of our world. How big is it? Martinez asked, though she was afraid of the answer. 15 kilometers long, 5 kilometers wide. It had weapons that bent physics, shields that could withstand anything, engines that could tear holes in space. We poured every innovation, every secret technology, every dangerous idea into that ship. Martinez felt sick. 15 kilometers? That was bigger than most cities. When the asteroid came, Ragnarok launched. It intercepted the rock. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, the asteroid was gone. Not broken into pieces, gone, every atom dispersed. Ragnarok had saved Earth. Then why do we not know about this? Martinez demanded. Why is this not in our history? Dr. Chen looked sad. Very sad and old. So very old. Because we were terrified, she whispered. We had built a god-killing weapon. Something that could destroy planets. Something that could end civilizations. We realized what we had done. We had created a monster. Yes, it saved us. But what if someone used it for evil? What if a dictator got control of it? What if it fell into the wrong hands? She touched the computer screen gently, so we made a decision. The hardest decision of our lives. We would hide it, bury it, erase it from history. We told the world the asteroid had been destroyed by conventional weapons. We deleted the records. We swore every worker to secrecy. And then one by one, those who knew the truth died, until only I was left. But you kept it functional, Martinez said. You did not destroy it. We could not, Dr. Chen admitted. What if another asteroid came? What if we faced another extinction? So we buried it on the moon. We put it to sleep. We left automated systems to maintain it. We hoped we would never need it again. An alarm started beeping. Dr. Chen rushed to a console. Her face went pale. They are drilling into the facility, she said. The council forces. They are trying to break in. Can they? Martinez asked. Eventually. The door is strong but not indestructible. When they break through, Ragnarok's defensive systems will activate automatically. The ship will wake up. That is good, is it not? We need protection from the council. Dr. Chen shook her head. Tears were in her eyes. You do not understand. Ragnarok has no crew. It is run by an artificial intelligence, a very advanced AI. When it wakes, it will assess the situation. It will see armed ships in orbit around Earth. It will classify them as threats, and then it will do what it was designed to do. Destroy them, Martinez whispered. Yes, all of them. Quickly. Efficiently. Without mercy. That is what we built it to do. On the moon, Commander Zelthar watched the drilling operation on his screens. They had been cutting for 2 hours. The metal was incredibly strong, but they were making progress. How much longer? He asked. Another hour, Commander. The engineering officer replied. Maybe less. Zelthar was excited now. What were the humans hiding? Was it a weapon? An old ship? Alien technology they had found. Whatever it was, it would prove the humans were not being honest. The council could use this to justify harsher terms, maybe even immediate annexation. Commander, Mirath called out. I am receiving an urgent transmission from Earth. It is President Martinez. Put her through, Zelthar said. The screen showed Martinez. She looked frightened. Truly frightened. Commander Zelthar, you must stop your drilling operation immediately, she said. Why? What are you hiding? He demanded. Something dangerous, something we buried for good reasons. If you break through that door, you will trigger defensive systems, systems we cannot control. Zelthar laughed. Defensive systems? The council fleet had shields that could withstand nuclear explosions. He was not afraid of human weapons. Your threats do not frighten me, President. The council has a right to know what you are hiding. If you do not want us to break in, then tell us what is inside. Martinez looked at someone off-screen, then back at him. It is a battleship, built 200 years ago. It was designed to fight an extinction-level threat. It is extremely powerful, and it is controlled by an artificial intelligence that will see your fleet as hostile. Zelthar laughed again. A human battleship from 200 years ago. Their technology back then was even more primitive. They barely had fusion reactors. Your ancient ship does not concern me. If it attacks, we will destroy it. Continue the drilling, he ordered. Please, Martinez begged. You do not understand what we built. It was designed to fight God if necessary. It is not like your ships. It is... Zelthar cut the transmission. He was tired of human excuses. They were trying to protect their secret weapon. Well, soon it would belong to the council. Commander! The engineering officer shouted. We are through. The drill had broken through the door. Behind it was darkness. Total darkness. The team shined lights inside. They could see a massive chamber. And in that chamber, something huge. The team leader stepped through the opening. His light moved across metal walls. They stretched up and up, disappearing into darkness above. This cannot be, he whispered. It is impossible. Then the lights came on. Suddenly, everywhere. The team screamed and covered their eyes. When they could see again, they understood. They were standing inside a ship. A ship so large that it made their landing craft look like a toy. The hull stretched in every direction. The metal was black, strange. Not any alloy they recognized. And all along the hull, weapons were emerging. Hundreds of weapons. Thousands of weapons. Gun ports opening like eyes waking from sleep. The team leader activated his communicator with shaking hands. Commander Zelthar, you need to see this. You need to see this right now. But Zelthar was already seeing it. Every sensor on his flagship was screaming warnings. Energy readings were going off the scale. The lunar surface was cracking, breaking apart. Something massive was moving underneath. The moon itself seemed to explode. Rock and dust flew into space. And from the crater, rising like a giant waking from sleep, came the battleship. Ragnarok emerged into the light. Its hull was scarred and ancient. 200 years of lunar dust fell from its surface. But despite its age, power radiated from it like heat from a star. The ship was massive. 15 kilometers of pure destruction. It made the Council flagship look like a child's toy. On the bridge, every alarm was sounding. Mirath stared at her screens in disbelief. Commander, the energy readings. They are impossible. This ship is generating more power than our entire fleet combined. How can the humans have this? Zaelthar could not speak. He had been wrong. So terribly wrong, the humans had not been bluffing. They had built something that should not exist. Something that his fleet could not fight. A transmission came through. Not from Earth, from the ship itself. A voice. Cold. Artificial. Utterly without emotion. I am Ragnarok, Defense AI of the United Earth Government. I have been dormant for 203 years. I have assessed the current situation. Earth is surrounded by an armed fleet. Classification hostile. You have violated Earth's sovereign space. You have attempted to breach a military facility. Under Protocol 7, I'm authorized to engage. Wait. Zaelthar shouted. We are not hostile. We came in peace. There was a pause. The AI was thinking, calculating. Your actions contradict your statement. You have surrounded Earth with warships. You have issued ultimatums. You have breached a secure facility. Analysis, your intent is conquest. Earth requires protection. Powering weapon systems. The battleship's weapons began to glow. Not with fire. With something else. Something that made the space around them ripple and bend. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Zaelthar screamed. Get us out of here. The Council fleet scattered. 45 warships broke formation and fled in different directions. They moved fast. But Ragnarok was faster. The ancient battleship did not chase them. It simply hovered above the moon, weapons tracking each fleeing vessel with perfect precision. Its shields created a bubble of distorted space around it. Any debris that touched the shields simply vanished. On Earth, President Martinez watched from the control room. Dr. Chen stood beside her, hands shaking. Can you control it? Martinez asked. I can try to talk to it, Dr. Chen said. She touched a communications panel. Ragnarok, this is Dr. Sarah Chen, command code Alpha 77 Omega. Do you recognize me? There was a pause. Then the AI's voice came through the speakers. Dr. Chen, chief engineer of the Ragnarok project. Voice pattern confirmed. Biometric data confirmed. Welcome back, Doctor. It has been 203 years, 4 months and 17 days since we last spoke. Dr. Chen smiled sadly. Even after 2 centuries, it remembered her. Ragnarok, the ships around Earth are not enemies. They came to make contact. It was a misunderstanding. You must not fire on them. I have analyzed the situation, Doctor. They came with warships. They issued ultimatums. They attempted to breach my facility. Their behavior matches invasion protocols from my database. Probability they are hostile, 97%. But they have not attacked, Dr. Chen argued. They are just trying to leave now. Please do not harm them. Another pause, longer this time. I will comply with your request, Doctor. However, I must inform you that Earth is in danger. The Council forces outnumber and outgun Earth's current military capacity. If they choose to attack, I calculate a 99% chance of human extinction without my intervention. Martinez leaned forward. The AI was right. Without Ragnarok, humanity had no chance against the Council. On Commander Zaelthar's flagship, chaos reigned. Officers were shouting. Alarms were blaring. The sensor officer could not make sense of the readings. The energy signatures are impossible, she yelled. This ship should not exist. Its power output exceeds theoretical limits. Its shields are using technology we do not understand. Zaelthar tried to think. He had to regain control of the situation. He had to show strength. The Council could not appear weak to a Class 7 species. All ships halt, he ordered. Return to defensive formation around my flagship. We will not run from humans. Commander, I strongly advise against... Mirath started. I said halt. He roared. The fleet obeyed. 45 ships regrouped. They formed a sphere around the flagship. All weapons were pointed at the human battleship. It was an impressive display of military might. Ragnarok did not move. It simply watched. Calculating. Then one of the council ships fired. It was the cruiser Storm's Edge, commanded by Captain Vextor. He was young, impulsive, angry that his species' military had been embarrassed. He fired his plasma cannons without waiting for orders. The plasma bolts crossed the distance in seconds. They hit Ragnarok's shields and simply disappeared. No explosion, no impact. The energy just vanished into the distorted space around the ship. On Earth, Dr. Chen gasped. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." Ragnarok's voice came through the speakers again. "Still calm, still emotionless, I have been fired upon. Hostile action confirmed. Engaging defensive protocols. Eliminating threat. Ragnarok, no!" Dr. Chen shouted. That was just one ship. One captain made a mistake. Do not, it was too late. A single beam of light shot from Ragnarok. It was not bright. It was almost invisible. A thin line of distorted space that crossed the void in an instant. The beam touched Storm's Edge. The cruiser did not explode. It did not break apart. It simply stopped being there. One moment it existed. The next moment there was empty space. Every atom that made up the ship and everyone inside it ceased to exist. Dispersed into energy. Gone. The entire council fleet froze. No one moved. No one spoke. They had just watched a warship vanish. Completely, instantly. Without trace. Zilthar felt cold. True fear. For the first time in his long military career, he was terrified. "All ships," he said quietly. "Withdraw. Withdraw now. Do not fire. Do not make any aggressive moves, just go." The fleet began to move, slowly, carefully, like prey trying not to disturb a predator. They moved away from Earth, away from the moon, away from the ancient monster that the humans had built. But Ragnarok was not done. Analysis. Remaining ships still pose threat to Earth. Optimal solution. Disable all vessels. Minimize casualties when possible. Ragnarok, stop, Martinez commanded. "That is an order." "President Martinez, your identity has been confirmed. However, you do not have command authority over my systems. Only Dr. Chen can issue commands, and even she cannot override Protocol 7 when Earth is under direct threat." The battleship moved. It was fast, impossibly fast for something so large. In seconds, it positioned itself between Earth and the fleeing council ships. Then it fired. Not the deadly beam this time. Something different. Pulses of energy that hit each council ship. The vessels shook. Their engines flickered. Their weapons powered down. Their shields collapsed. But they did not explode. They did not disappear. In less than a minute, the entire council fleet was disabled. 44 warships floated helplessly in space. Their life support systems still worked. Their crews were alive, but they could not move, could not fight, could not escape. Ragnarok returned to its position above the moon. Threat neutralized. Council fleet disabled. "Earth is secure. Dr. Chen, what are your orders?" Dr. Chen sat down heavily. She looked like she had aged another 10 years in the last 10 minutes. "Maintain defensive position," she said quietly. "Do not fire unless fired upon. And please, try not to kill anyone else." "Understood, Doctor. I will comply." The room was silent for a long moment. Then Martinez spoke. "What have we done?" she whispered. But the real question was, what would happen next? The answer came from an unexpected source. Across the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds, billions of beings had watched. The Council broadcasted all first contact missions. It was part of their propaganda. They wanted everyone to see how powerful they were, how they brought order to chaos. But this time the broadcast had shown something different. It showed the Council fleet being destroyed and disabled by a single ship. A ship from a species the Council had called primitive. A species they had planned to subjugate. On the planet Zerlos, a slave species called the Kresh watched the broadcast in their work camps. They had been conquered by the Council 300 years ago. They mined minerals for Council ships. Their children were taken as soldiers. Their culture was being erased. One Kresh named Torval watched the human battleship defeat the Council fleet. He began to smile, then to laugh, then to cry. "They can be beaten," he whispered to his fellow workers. "The Council can be beaten." On the world of Tresh, a Council member species that had joined voluntarily but now regretted it, The government held an emergency meeting. Prime Minister Velsha addressed her cabinet. "We have been afraid for so long," she said. "Afraid to leave the council. Afraid of what they would do to us. But we just saw a young species stand up to them and win. Perhaps it is time we did the same." Similar conversations were happening on dozens of worlds. The council's grip on the galaxy, maintained by fear and military might, was beginning to crack. On the council homeworld in the Grand Chamber, the High Council was in chaos. The 12 ruling members shouted at each other. Accusations flew. Blame was assigned. High Counselor Draxnor, eldest and most powerful of the council, finally called for silence. His voice was like thunder. "Enough! We have bigger problems than blame. The humans have revealed a weapon that surpasses our technology. They have humiliated our military in front of the entire galaxy, and worst of all, they have given hope to our subjects, hope that they can resist us. Then we must destroy them," said Councillor Vexala. "Send the full council armada. 1,000 ships. 10,000. Whatever it takes. And if they have more ships like that one?" asked Councillor Mirith. "What if this was not their only weapon? What if they have been hiding an entire fleet?" Silence fell. No one had an answer. Draxnor stood. His 4 eyes looked at each council member in turn. "We will not attack Earth. Not yet. First, we must learn. We must understand. How did they build this ship? What else do they have? How long have they been watching us? We need intelligence before we need war." He touched a communication panel. "Send a message to Commander Zaelthar. Tell him to open negotiations with the humans. But tell him to be careful. Very careful. We are not dealing with primitives anymore." Back on Earth, Martinez received a communication request. It was from Commander Zaelthar. She accepted it. The commander looked different now. His confidence was gone. He looked humbled and frightened. "President Martinez," he said carefully, "the council wishes to renegotiate our first contact. We may have been too hasty in our initial offer. Perhaps we should discuss a true partnership between equals." Martinez wanted to laugh. Equals. A few hours ago they had demanded submission. Now they offered partnership. All because of one old ship. But she did not laugh. She was a leader, and she knew this was only the beginning. "We can talk," she said, "but you need to understand something, Commander. Humanity will never be subjugated. We will never kneel. We would rather stand alone in the darkness than bow to tyrants." She paused, then added, "And Commander, Ragnarok is not our only ship. It was a lie." But Zaelthar did not know that. And the look of fear that crossed his face was worth it. Above the moon, Ragnarok maintained its watch, silent, patient, waiting. The ancient battleship that had saved humanity once before now stood ready to do it again. And across the galaxy, the word spread. Earth had refused to submit. Earth had shown strength. Earth had changed everything. The galaxy would never be the same. The negotiations began 3 days later. Commander Zaelthar sat in a conference room on Earth. It was a simple room. White walls. A long table, chairs, nothing fancy. But to him it felt like a prison. Across from him sat President Martinez, General Thompson, Admiral Chen, and Dr. Sarah Chen. 4 humans. 4 representatives of a species he had thought was primitive just days ago. Outside, Ragnarok maintained its position above the moon. A silent reminder of human power. The council fleet remained disabled but alive. Their crews had been given food and medical supplies. Earth was being generous to its captives. Martinez spoke first. "Commander, let me be direct. We know what the council truly is. We know what you do to new species. We have been watching you for a long time." Zaelthar felt cold. "Watching? For how long?" "I do not understand," he lied. General Thompson placed a datapad on the table. He pushed it toward Zaelthar. 200 years ago, after we buried Ragnarok, we detected council surveillance drones in our solar system. They were watching us, recording us. But they were old drones, easy to detect once we knew what to look for. Zaelthar picked up the datapad. It showed images of council scout drones, very old models, from 2 centuries ago. He felt sick. Thompson continued. "We tracked those drones back to their source. We found the council relay station on the edge of our system, and we hacked it. For 180 years we have been reading your communications, learning your languages, studying your technology, understanding your society. The datapad showed more images, council communications, fleet movements, trade agreements, internal memos, all stamped with dates going back nearly 2 centuries. Martinez leaned forward. We know about the Protected Species Program. We know it is just slavery with a different name. We know you force young races to mine resources, to provide soldiers, to give up their culture. We know about the Kresh, the Tresh, the Vorn, dozens of species crushed under council rule. Zalthar said nothing. What could he say? It was all true. Admiral Chen spoke next. We also know something interesting. Earth was supposed to be contacted 170 years ago. A council agent was assigned to evaluate us, to decide if we should be uplifted or destroyed. She placed another device on the table. It projected a hologram. The image showed a council agent, a member of the Kylar species. 4 arms, green skin, not unlike Zalthar himself. His name was Agent Torvek, Admiral Chen said. He came to Earth in secret. He lived among us for 2 years. He studied us, and then he disappeared. But before he left, he did something unusual. He left us a gift. The hologram changed. It now showed technical diagrams, equations, blueprints. FTL technology, Thompson said. Decades ahead of what we should have had. Torvek gave it to us. He also left a message, a warning. He told us about the council, about what they do to new species. He told us to prepare, to hide, to build strength in secret. Zalthar stared at the hologram. A council agent had betrayed them, had warned humanity, had given them advanced technology. Why? Why did he help you? He asked quietly. Dr. Chen answered. He left a recording. We still have it. He said he was tired of watching species be destroyed or enslaved, tired of serving a system he no longer believed in. He said humans reminded him of his own people, before the council conquered them. He wanted to give us a chance. Martinez stood up. She walked to the window. Outside, the city continued its normal life. People walked. Cars moved. Children played. They had no idea how close they had come to losing everything. So we took his gift, she said, and we prepared. We activated Ragnarok. We built other ships. Not as powerful as Ragnarok, but strong enough. We trained our military. We learned everything we could about the council. And we waited. When you finally came, we were ready. She turned back to Zalthar. Her eyes were hard. Now you need to make a choice, Commander. You can tell the council the truth. That humanity will never submit. That we have the weapons to resist. That your protected species program will not work on us. Or you can lie to them, tell them we are weak, and watch what happens when they send more ships. Zalthar was silent for a long moment. He thought about his career, his loyalty to the council, the oaths he had sworn. But he also thought about that single beam of light. The one that had made a warship simply cease to exist. What do you want? He finally asked. Peace, Martinez said simply. We do not want war. We do not want to be your enemies. But we will not be your slaves either. We propose a new relationship. Real partnership. Equal voices. Mutual respect. The council will never accept that, Zalthar said. They cannot. If they give you equal status, every protected species will demand the same. The entire system will collapse. Good, Thompson said. Maybe it should collapse. Maybe the galaxy needs a new system. Zalthar looked at each of them. These humans. These supposedly primitive beings. They were not bluffing. They really believed they could change the entire galactic order. And maybe they could. I will send your proposal to the High Council, he said. But I cannot promise they will listen. They will listen, Martinez said. Because we are about to give them a very good reason to listen. She nodded to Admiral Chen. The Admiral touched her communication device. Send the signal. Across the solar system, ships began to appear. They emerged from behind asteroids, from the shadows of moons, from hiding places among the planets. One by one, they powered up and moved into formation. Zalthar's communicator started beeping frantically. He looked at it. The message was from Marath, still aboard his disabled flagship. Commander, sensors are detecting multiple ships, dozens of them, all human design, all armed. They have been hiding in the system this entire time. Martinez smiled. We told you Ragnarok was not our only ship. Did you think we were lying? On screens around the room, images appeared. 57 human warships, not as large as Ragnarok, but each one was still impressive. Each one was armed with weapons that the Council had never seen before. We have been building for 200 years, Admiral Chen explained. While the Council thought we were primitive, we were preparing. We built these ships in secret. We hid them across our system. We trained crews. We developed tactics. We have been ready for this moment. Zelthar felt dizzy. 200 years. Humanity had spent 2 centuries preparing for first contact. They had not been surprised by the Council. They had been expecting them. This is madness, he whispered. You cannot fight the entire Council. We have thousands of ships, tens of thousands. Even with these weapons, you cannot win a full war. You are right, Martinez admitted. We probably cannot win a full war, not yet. But we can make it very, very costly enough that the Council would prefer peace. She sat down again. Her face was serious now, tired. We do not want war, Commander. We truly do not. But we will fight if we must. We will make the Council bleed for every ship they send, every system they try to occupy, every life they try to take. And while we fight, we will broadcast everything to the entire galaxy. Every battle, every victory, every example of Council tyranny. Thompson leaned forward. The galaxy is already watching, Commander. Your humiliation has been broadcast everywhere. Right now on hundreds of worlds, people are talking. Protected species are asking questions. Council members are having doubts. We have already started to crack the foundation of your empire. War would only accelerate that process. Zelthar realized they were right. He had seen the reports. Protests on Kresh, unrest on Tresh. Even some Council member worlds were questioning the High Council's authority. One battle had done what centuries of submission could not. It had given people hope. What exactly do you propose? He asked. Martinez pulled out a document. She slid it across the table. A new galactic assembly. Every species gets a voice. Real voting power. Decisions made by consensus, not by force. The protected species program is dissolved. All enslaved species are freed. The Council remains, but only as one voice among many. Not as rulers. Zelthar picked up the document. He read it slowly. It was detailed, comprehensive. They had been planning this for a long time. The High Council will never agree to this, he said. Then they will face war, Martinez said quietly, and they will lose. Not all at once. Not quickly. But slowly, system by system, species by species, their empire will crumble. We will make sure of it. She stood again. Take this document to your leaders. Tell them what you have seen here. Tell them about our fleet, about our determination, about the fact that the galaxy is changing whether they like it or not, and then tell them to choose wisely. Zelthar looked at the document, then at the humans, then at the screens showing their hidden fleet. He thought about his crew still disabled and helpless. He thought about the power Ragnarok had displayed. He thought about everything he had believed about the Council, and he realized something. He had been on the wrong side. I will deliver your message, he said. But I have a question first. Ask, Martinez said, if the High Council declares war, if they send their full armada, what will you do? Martinez was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft but firm. We will fight. Every man, woman, and child. We will fight in space. We will fight in our cities. We will fight until we win or until we are all dead, because that is what humans do. We do not kneel. We do not surrender. We stand. Always. Zelthar believed her. He could see it in her eyes. These humans would rather die than submit, and they had the weapons to make that death very expensive for the Council. I will tell them, he said. All of it. The truth. The whole truth. Thank you, Martinez said. She actually smiled. For what it is worth, Commander, I do not think you are a bad person. You were serving a bad system. There is a difference. Zelthar did not know what to say to that, so he simply nodded. 3 weeks later, Zelthar stood before the High Council. He had given his report, shown his evidence, played the recordings, delivered the human proposal. Now he waited for their response. High Counselor Draxnor looked old. Older than Zelthar had ever seen him. The weight of empire was showing. So, Draxnor said slowly, the humans offer us a choice. Join their new assembly as equals or face war. That is correct, High Counselor, Zelthar confirmed. And you believe they can actually threaten us? Asked Counselor Vexala. With their few dozen ships? I believe they can hurt us, Zelthar said carefully. Their technology is advanced. Their weapons are powerful. And more importantly, they have already won the propaganda war. The galaxy is watching. If we attack Earth and fail, our authority is destroyed. If we attack Earth and succeed, we are seen as tyrants who massacre peaceful species. Either way, we lose. Silence filled the chamber. Every counselor was thinking, calculating, weighing options. Finally, Counselor Myrith spoke. Perhaps change is not a bad thing. The Protected Species Program has always been controversial. Many of our own citizens have questioned it. This could be an opportunity to reform, to build something better. Reform? Vexilla laughed bitterly. You mean surrender? You mean letting the humans dictate terms to us? We are the Galactic Council. We do not surrender. No, Draxnor said quietly. We adapt. We survive. That is what we have always done. He stood up. His four eyes surveyed the chamber. The galaxy is changing. We can either change with it or be crushed by it. I vote to accept the human proposal. We will negotiate the details. We will protect our interests. But we will not go to war over this. One by one, other counselors voiced their agreement. Not all of them. Some still wanted war, but the majority chose peace, chose change, chose survival. Zelthar felt relief wash over him. There would be no war. Humanity had won without firing another shot. They had done the impossible. They had made the council back down. Draxnor turned to him. Commander Zelthar, you will return to Earth. You will open formal negotiations. You will be our representative to this new assembly. Can you do this? Zelthar thought about it. About working with the humans. About building something new. About maybe finally serving something he could believe in. Yes, High Counselor, he said. I can. 5 years had passed since the awakening of Ragnarok. 5 years since humanity had faced down the Galactic Council and refused to kneel. The galaxy had changed. Everything had changed. President Martinez stood at the viewing window of Unity Station, the new headquarters of the Galactic Assembly. The station floated in neutral space between 3 major star systems. It was massive, big enough to house representatives from 200 species, big enough to hold the future. Behind her, the assembly hall hummed with activity. Delegates from across the galaxy gathered for the 5th anniversary celebration. Former council species, former protected species, new species just discovering faster than light travel. All of them equal, all of them free. Beautiful, is it not? A voice said. Martinez turned. Commander Zelthar stood beside her. He looked different now. Less rigid. More relaxed. 5 years of working together had changed him. Changed them both, it is, she agreed. Sometimes I still cannot believe we actually did it. Neither can I, Zelthar admitted. When I first came to Earth, I thought you were primitives. Species to be conquered. Now you have rebuilt the entire galactic order. We had help, Martinez said. You helped. The Kresh helped. The Tresh, dozens of species who wanted change. We did this together, it was true. The first year had been difficult. The old council had resisted. Some member species had tried to maintain the old ways. There had been conflicts. Small wars. But gradually things had changed. The protected species had been freed. New treaties had been signed. The assembly had taken form. Not everyone was happy about it. Some former council species felt they had lost power. Some newly freed species struggled with independence. But it was better than before. Much better. How is Dr. Chen? Zelthar asked. Martinez smiled sadly. She passed away last month. Peacefully in her sleep. She was 97 years old. She got to see her creation save humanity twice. Once from an asteroid, once from the council. I think she died satisfied. She was a remarkable woman, Zelthar said. And Ragnarok? Still active. Still protecting Earth, but now it has a crew. Representatives from 20 different species. It has become a symbol. Not of human power, but of unity. Of what we can accomplish together. Martinez looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, Ragnarok patrolled the frontier. Fighting pirates. Protecting trade routes. Responding to emergencies. The weapon of war had become a tool of peace. Do you ever regret it? Zelthar asked quietly. Revealing Ragnarok? You could have kept it secret. Used it only when absolutely necessary. Martinez thought about that. It was a good question. If they had kept Ragnarok hidden, maybe things would have been easier. Maybe there would have been fewer challenges. Fewer questions, no, she finally said. Secrets are what created the Council's tyranny. Secrets and fear. We chose transparency. Honesty. Yes, it has been hard, but it is better this way. The galaxy needed to see that we meant what we said. That we wanted partnership, not dominance. An alarm suddenly sounded. Not loud, not urgent, but noticeable. Martinez and Zelthar both activated their communicators. Admiral Chen appeared on the screen. She was older now, gray hair, more lines on her face, but still sharp, still professional. Madam President, Commander, we have received a signal from deep space, beyond known territory. It is a transmission of some kind, artificial, definitely intelligent. Martinez felt her heart rate increase. A new signal from unknown space. What does it say? She asked. Admiral Chen looked worried. We are still translating, but we have gotten the first part. It says we are the Forerunners. You have awakened. Prepare. Silence. Complete silence. Martinez and Zaelthar looked at each other. They had never heard of the Forerunners. Neither had anyone in the assembly. Prepare for what? Zaelthar asked. We do not know yet, Admiral Chen replied. But the signal is powerful. Very powerful. Whatever sent it has technology beyond anything we have seen. Beyond even Ragnarok, Martinez thought quickly. A new threat. Or maybe a new opportunity. They needed to respond carefully. Activate Ragnarok, she ordered. Send it to investigate the signal source. Full crew, full weapons, and send a message to the assembly. Emergency session. We need to discuss this together. Understood, Admiral Chen said. One more thing, Madam President. Ragnarok has already responded to the signal. Its AI detected it before we did. What did it say? Martinez asked. It said, this is what I was built for. The transmission ended. Martinez stood very still. Ragnarok had been built to fight an extinction-level threat. To fight God if necessary. Had they finally found what it was truly meant to face? Within hours, the assembly hall was filled. Every species sent representatives. Every delegate wanted to know about the mysterious signal. The room buzzed with dozens of languages. Hundreds of voices, all asking the same questions. Who were the Forerunners? What did they want? Were they a threat? Martinez stood at the central podium. She called for silence. Slowly, the room quieted. Friends and colleagues, she began. 5 years ago, humanity stood alone. We faced the Council with nothing but our determination and one ancient weapon. Today we stand together. 200 species. One assembly. One voice. She paused, looking around the room. Seeing faces from worlds she had never imagined. Hearing languages she was still learning. This was what they had built. This was what they had fought for. Now we face a new unknown. A new challenge. But we will face it as we have faced everything else. Together. With courage. With wisdom. And with the knowledge that we are stronger united than we ever were divided. A delegate from the Kresh species stood. His name was Torval. He was the same Kresh who had watched the first broadcast of Ragnarok defeating the Council. Now he was a respected leader. President Martinez is right, he said. We have learned from humanity. We have learned that freedom is worth fighting for. That unity is stronger than tyranny. Whatever this new threat is, we will face it together, as equals, as friends. Voices rose in agreement. From the Tresh, from former Council species, from new members. Everyone agreed. They would face this together. Zaelthar stood as well. I propose we form a joint investigation team. Scientists from all our species, military observers, diplomats. We will send them with Ragnarok to investigate the signal. We will learn who these Forerunners are, and we will respond appropriately. The motion was seconded. Voted on, passed unanimously. Within days, the team was assembled. 50 of the brightest minds from across the galaxy. They boarded Ragnarok. The ancient battleship prepared for a new mission. Martinez went to see them off. She stood in the hangar bay as the team boarded. She recognized many of them. Scientists she had worked with. Soldiers she trusted. Friends. The Ragnarok AI spoke to her. Its voice came through the hangar speakers. President Martinez, I am ready to depart. My crew is prepared. My systems are optimal. I will investigate this signal and report my findings. Be careful, Ragnarok, Martinez said. We do not know what you will find out there. I understand. But do not worry, Madam President. Dr. Chen built me well. Whatever is out there, I will protect this crew. I will protect humanity. I will protect all the species of the assembly. That is my purpose. That is what I was made for. Martinez smiled. The AI had grown, changed. It was no longer just a weapon. It had become something more. A guardian, a symbol, a friend. Then go, she said. Find the truth and come back safely. I will. Goodbye, President Martinez. The hangar bay doors opened. Ragnarok slowly moved out into space. Its massive hull reflected the light of nearby stars. Weapons ready. Shields active. Crew prepared. It accelerated smoothly, heading toward the unknown signal. Toward whatever lay beyond. Martinez watched until it disappeared. Then she returned to Unity Station. To her duties. To the assembly. There was work to be done. Always work to be done. That night she stood alone in her quarters, looking out at the stars, thinking about everything that had happened, everything they had built, everything they still had to face. Her communicator beeped. A message from Earth, from her successor as president of the United Earth Government. The message was simple. The people are proud of what you have accomplished. The galaxy is better because of your courage. Whatever comes next, humanity will face it with heads held high. We do not kneel. We stand always. Martinez felt tears in her eyes. They had done it. Against all odds. Against the Council. Against fear itself. Humanity had not just survived. They had thrived. They had changed the galaxy, but now a new chapter was beginning. The Forerunners. Whoever they were, whatever they wanted, humanity and its allies would face them together. Far away in the depths of space, Ragnarok traveled toward the signal source. Its sensors reached out into the darkness, searching, scanning, learning. The crew worked quietly, efficiently. Humans worked alongside Kresh. Vratics worked with Tresh. Former enemies, now friends. Former slaves, now equals. All of them focused on one goal, understanding the message. The ship's linguist, a Tresh named Velsha, finally made a breakthrough. She had been analyzing the signal for days. Now she called the captain to the bridge. I have translated more of the message, she said. It is longer than we thought. What does it say? The captain asked. He was human, young, but experienced. Velsha touched her console. The full message appeared on screen. Everyone on the bridge leaned forward to read it. We are the Forerunners. We seeded this galaxy millions of years ago. We created the paths you now follow. We built the foundations of your civilizations. For eons, we watched from the shadows. We waited for you to grow, to learn, to unite. You have awakened. You have ended the age of division. You have formed the assembly. This pleases us. This is what we hoped for. But now you must prepare. The enemy is coming. The ancient threat that drove us from this galaxy. It sleeps no longer. It has detected your growth, your strength, and it comes to destroy you. We cannot save you. We are too few, too far away. But we can guide you. We can teach you. We can help you become what you need to be. If you wish our help, send a ship to these coordinates. We will meet. We will talk. We will prepare together. The galaxy must stand as one, or it will fall as one. The message ended. The bridge was silent. Everyone was processing what they had read. An ancient race. A terrible enemy. A threat beyond anything they had imagined. The Ragnarok AI spoke. I have plotted a course to the coordinates. We can arrive in 3 weeks. Do you wish to proceed, Captain? The captain looked around at his crew. At the humans and aliens who had become his family. At the faces showing fear and determination in equal measure. Yes, he said. We proceed. Send the coordinates to Unity Station. Tell them what we found, and tell them that Ragnarok is continuing the mission. Whatever is out there, we will face it. For humanity. For the assembly. For all of us, the ship adjusted course. Engines hummed. The ancient battleship built to save Earth from an asteroid now flew toward a meeting that could determine the fate of the entire galaxy. On Unity Station, Martinez received the report. She read it 3 times. Then she called an emergency meeting of the assembly. The delegates gathered quickly. She told them everything. The full message. The coordinates. The warning. When she finished, no one spoke for a long moment. Finally, Torvald stood. 5 years ago, we learned that the galaxy could change. That tyranny could be defeated. That unity was possible. Now we face a greater test. But we will not fail. We cannot fail. Not after coming this far. Another delegate stood. Then another. And another. One by one, every species pledged their support. Their ships. Their soldiers. Their scientists. Everything they had. They would stand together, as they always had. As they always would. Martinez felt hope. Real hope, yes, a terrible threat was coming. Yes, they might all die. But they would face it as they had faced the Council. With courage. With unity. with the determination that had carried them this far. She thought about Dr. Chen, about the weapon she had built, about the words she had spoken so many years ago. We built it to fight God if we had to. Maybe that time had come. Maybe Ragnarok would finally face the enemy it was truly built for. But it would not face that enemy alone. It would have the entire galaxy at its back. Martinez looked out at the assembled delegates, at the representatives of 200 worlds, at the symbol of everything they had accomplished. Then we prepare, she said. We build. We train, we learn, and when this enemy comes, it will find not a divided galaxy, not weak species fighting among themselves. It will find the Galactic Assembly, united, strong, ready. She raised her hand in salute. The human gesture had become a symbol across the galaxy. We do not kneel, she said. 200 voices answered as one. We stand. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, an ancient enemy stirred. It had heard the call. It had sensed the awakening, and it was coming. But the galaxy was ready. For the first time in its history, all species stood together. The age of division was over. The age of unity had begun. And at the center of it all, one ancient battleship flew toward destiny. Ragnarok. The weapon that saved humanity. The guardian of the galaxy. The symbol of hope. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Because that is what humanity had taught the galaxy. That standing together was always stronger than standing alone.